Chicago Brass Band Players, and if you haven't heard us before, we are a subgroup of a larger brass band in the British tradition, but with Chicago style, as we have said on our website and our Facebook page. If you're not familiar with us, go ahead and check us out on either our website or on Facebook. We're on both, and we're really so pleased to be here today. We've had the privilege of playing here at McHENRY County College for quite a few years. Obviously, things are a little bit different this year because we're not playing before a live audience, but we are seeing or playing for a great crowd through the live stream. And thank you to the college for giving us this opportunity to play. It's been a long time for a lot of us with a lot of anxious moments to get back into live performance, so we're thrilled to be here. We opened our program today, I think appropriately so, with three very traditional spirituals. Down to the River to Pray, a longtime favorite of people, particularly in the southern part of this country. And you may have heard it maybe for the first time in a very great movie from, about 8 or 9 years ago, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Then we went into Just a Closer Walk, which I'm told is not only a favorite of many, but may actually be the #1 spiritual played in funeral processions. So I'm not sure if that's true or not, but certainly a very, very familiar tune to a lot of people. The third piece, Amazing Grace, again, a familiar piece for everybody. But unlike the first two pieces, it was actually written, if you can believe this, by a Brit. And in fact, the Brit who wrote the song is said to have been a slave trader and converted to evangelical Christianity back in the 1700s and became a minister. And as a result of that conversion and that process, wrote what has truly become one of the most familiar, one of the most covered spirituals in our music lexicon. So we hope you enjoyed those first three numbers. We are going to stay down in the New Orleans area, and if you've ever been down to New Orleans, you know that one of the great traditions is the street parade. So we're going to play two street parades for you now, a little bit different, and I'll explain what I mean by that. The first is Bourbon Street Parade, very common. I'm sure you're going to be familiar and recognize the tune when we play it. The next piece is called Joe Avery's piece. The reason it's different is because it's referred to as a second line street march. Well, what do we mean by second line street march? Second line means you have the procession, you have the parade down the streets with a formal program, an order. Whoever the parade organizers are say, okay, you go first, you go second. And then generally, and typically, it's become a great tradition down in New Orleans, you have people following at the end of the parade, at the end of the organized procession, with what's referred to as the second line march. Oftentimes, people say that the second line marches and the second line music is even better than the front line. So we hope you enjoy these two pieces, Bourbon Street Parade and Joe Avery's piece. Now, before I forget, let's welcome Daniel Heffner on percussion. Rousing applause is what we would normally hear at this point. Daniel, when we talk about the brass quintet plus one, he's the one. I forgot to mention that you were going to hear an incredibly hot tuba solo, which is very typical of the New Orleans Street March. Dan, Bethel, stand up and take your bow, please. Okay. And not to be outdone, we've got Jeff Crylen, who is just aching to start this next piece. So Joe Avery's piece, here we go.
The next piece we're going to play for you, actually the next two pieces are for brass trio. The first one is Poulenc, Francis Poulenc's Sonata for brass trio, so that's going to be trombone and trumpet. I'm going to be playing it on cornet and French horn. It was written in 1922. It was a very interesting time in music. On one hand, you had jazz really as the popular music in the United States, musicians like Louis Armstrong. You had Arnold Schoenberger in Germany experimenting with atonal music and tone rows. Francis Poulenc was French, and his music that you're going to hear almost sounds in some ways like it could have been written in the 1700s, around the same time as Mozart and Haydn, but you hear some of the 20th century chords in his harmonies and also in his rhythmic choices. So his music is very French for the 1900s and very humorous and very witty, but also very pleasant, especially when you consider that it was being written around the same time as resurging atonal music. So this is Francis Poulenc's a sonata for a brass trio.
as Andy said in his introduction of the Poulenc, we switched 2 pieces for the trio on the program. So the next piece, we're going to go back to New Orleans, back to the French Quarter. The reason we selected this piece, other than the fact that we like it, it's 4 movements written by a good friend of ours, Zack Smith, who's done so many arrangements for brass quintet, brass quartets, trios. It's been a very good resource for groups such as ours. And what he did was to compose a piece called French Quarter Snapshots. And when most people think of French Quarter or New Orleans, you think of Dixieland, or you think of blues, or you think of parades, and we've touched upon some of those already. But what's good about this next piece is it captures additional colors and kind of completes the picture of what New Orleans is really all about. The first movement is called As the Morning Fog Fades. And it really is so apt, because if you've been to the French Quarter, especially during Mardi Gras or other very, very busy periods, you know what it's like late into the night, into the early morning. And then things kind of eventually, gradually empty out. And since New Orleans is a port, you do see a lot of the fog. And as the fog comes in, then the sunrise comes and the morning fog fades, and you get an entirely different look of what the city of New Orleans is all about. That's the first movement. The second movement is called a stomp at the levee, or the old Levee Stomp. Stomps are a particular genre or form of music that kind of fits in between, almost as a transitional piece, between rags and what became New Orleans blues and jazz. Jelly Roll Morton was a band leader and a musician who really was the master of the stomp. Played all the clubs, not just in New Orleans, but all over the country. And you will see a very, very distinct form of rhythm and chord progression in what's referred to as a stomp. The third movement is called the Voodoo Dance. And true to its roots in New Orleans, there's a lot of history, a lot of culture, probably more legend than history and culture, but voodoo certainly plays a prominent role in the whole aura of what New Orleans is all about. The last movement, the fourth movement, is called a funeral dance or a funeral event, and certainly that goes back to more of what we're accustomed to hearing with New Orleans music. The street progression or the street parade, which is very different from the 2 street marches you heard earlier, a much slower, but still a joyful and joyous event in terms of the funeral marches. So we hope you like New Orleans Snapshots by Zack Smith. not sure if we're staying in New Orleans now or maybe venturing out a little bit further, but it doesn't really matter because the next two pieces are kind of in a similar vein. St. James Infirmary is another traditional song. Certainly can't really call it a spiritual because it's about a guy who goes to visit his girlfriend who died, and he's visiting her in the morgue. So St. James Infirmary, a traditional piece that features pretty much everybody. And again, I know you've been waiting for this. We brought back Dan Bethel on tuba, another hot tuba solo. We bring back Daniel Heffner on percussion, and Jeff Crylen back on trumpet. So we're glad to have them back. St. James Infirmary. Then we're going to play a song that if we had a live crowd, the joint would be hopping. There's no question about it. It's Minnie the Moocher. Minnie the Moocher is a song that's familiar to pretty much everybody, no matter how old, how young, what style of music you like. If you watch the movie Blues Brothers, you know Minnie the Moocher. And the name Cab Calloway is an icon, is a legend in jazz music. And it's interesting because Cab started out just as kind of a bit player, then got his own band, his own combo, and then started starting featuring some songs that were picked up by the movies, and not just the Blues Brothers. Actually, I think the most I don't know if it's the most noteworthy thing about Minnie the Moocher, the cartoon, is it Little Lotto? Is that the cartoon, guys? Little Lotto? Little Lotto had in one of its cartoons excerpts from Minnie the Moocher, and the studio banned it. It was too controversial. So I doubt that would happen today, but if you're listening at home and you know this number, when we get to the part where it goes, hidey, 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 ho, hidey, 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 ho, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and just go ahead and join in. Nobody's going to hear you. Nobody's going to laugh at you, I guess. It's too late for me. So here we go, St. James Infirmary and Minnie the Moocher. One, two, three, four. Thank you. Okay, now I can say with positive assurance that we're leaving New Orleans and taking a trip to Russia. Doesn't matter where, Moscow, St. Petersburg, wherever. If you're at all familiar with the Russian Orthodox Church, you are aware that some of the finest choral arrangements for liturgical music were done by the most prolific and most well-known of all classical composers, Rachmaninoff, Tchaikovsky, Rimsky-Korsakov, and many, many others. Russian Orthodox liturgical music is filled with arrangements of various parts of the liturgy with music that was beautifully arranged by those great composers. Dmitri Bortnyansky is perhaps a somewhat lesser known but still very, very prolific composer who actually was preceding Tchaikovsky. Bortniansky wrote, actually, I don't recall exact number, but about 40 what are referred to here in the Western music as sacred concertos, actually all part of various parts of liturgical music in the Orthodox Church. Interestingly, Bortniansky wrote these sacred concertos all for choral pieces, for singing. But we have found that this type of music translates very, very well for a brass quartet. Now, what we are going to play next is a piece called Make a Joyful Noise Unto the Lord. In fact, our program today has as its theme, Make a Joyful Noise. Hopefully, all of the pieces that have preceded this one kind of foreshadow that. Even the funeral pieces are not mournful funeral dirges as much as they are resurrectional in nature and joyful in the noise that they make as funeral music. So we are going to play Make a Joyful Noise Unto the Lord by Dmitry Bortniansky. If you like this piece, I urge you to go onto Google or YouTube and find a recording of one of the fine Russian Orthodox choirs actually sing this piece as it was written. You'll be blown away. So here we go, Bortniansky's Make a Joyful Noise Unto the Lord. As we all know, this is a different format for a concert, for a performance, for a program, because of what we all throughout the world have been through for the last 6, 7, 8 months. And we're all aware of the havoc that has befallen pretty much everyone in the world. I don't think anybody can say they have been left untouched, with lives unchanged one way or the other from the pandemic. And we all grieve, of course, the families of the people who have died from the virus. We all pay tribute to the people on the front lines who have protected us, who have fed us, who have made sure our stores are filled with the necessary supplies that we all need to enjoy our lives and, in fact, to have sustenance. But today, we thought it would be particularly appropriate to give our tribute to a large group of people, I won't say who have gone unnoticed. Certainly that's not the case. But we are paying tribute with this next piece to the hundreds of thousands of people in senior living communities, in nursing homes, in hospitals, who, because of the lockdowns, because of the safety precautions that were imposed, were left in the most tragic of all settings and of all positions. It is almost incomprehensible to imagine being in a nursing home, in a senior living community, and not knowing why your family members aren't coming around to visit you any longer. And it's especially hard, it's especially tragic for those people with various degrees of dementia, Alzheimer's disease, who are isolated without feeling the touch, without feeling the love, without hearing from or seeing the loved ones who are trying to take care of them in those final days. So this next piece, it's written by Samuel Barber. It's actually written for strings and strings only, but again, we find that it translates very, very well for a brass quintet. Adagio for strings, in tribute to all of those people who were isolated and left tragically stranded during this pandemic. We're going to finish our program today with it's a piece that's well known to brass ensembles. I'm not sure how well known it is generally, but it's a magnificent piece, and it's quite fitting for us to complete our program of Make a Joyful Noise with a piece called A Western Fanfare by Eric Owazen. The Western frontier, bonanza, gunsmoke, capturing the wild, leaving behind the troubles of your past life and exploring something that's completely and truly unknown with great hope and aspiration. And that's the piece that we will leave you with as our last number. That is, unless there's a rousing round of applause, and of course do we have an encore in the books for these guys? So we'll see how that works, but we'll finish the program today with Eric Owazen's A Western Fanfare. What's that? What's that? You wanna hear one more? Okay, we just happen to have one now. I'm not going to introduce the piece. But I'm going to leave you with these words. Some say perhaps the most profound words ever spoken by a 20th century philosopher. Obla di, obla da, life goes on, bra. La la, how the life goes on. Thank you for being with us, and hopefully we'll see you with a live crowd very, very soon.